Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop.
Now this is the blade. I found if I take a little magnet and put on it, it makes it so I've got a handle to work with. Trying to push this thing back and forth on this sandpaper with just your fingers on this little thin piece, you'll either wear through your gloves or wear the end of your fingers off. The magnet just gives you a little handle to work with. Now I'm only going to do the 150 grit. I don't need to put 80 grit scratches in this blade because that just thins the blade out unnecessarily. What I'm looking for is I want to have that front edge flat. Because remember, on this plane, there's only 3/8 of an inch of the front edge that actually sits on anything. The rest of it is out in the open air. So if I'm trying to get this thing to register in one spot, it doesn't make much difference. When I'm sanding this down, all I need to have is a nice shiny spot along the front edge there. This blade is a bevel down blade. This surface right here sets against the mount for the blade. Having this perfectly flat on this side with no pits really doesn't mean anything because I'm going to grind it away and I'll always have a fresh edge from down inside the body of the plane blade. I want to have it flat and straight so it sits flat and straight on the mount area right there, but I don't need to worry about pitting. On this side I want to have the edge shiny all the way out to the edge, but the nice thing about it, it's not really rusty. This clamp set back that far from the edge, so I don't have that trapped water underneath the blade clamp that's out there causing pitting. I've got a good 3/8 inch of steel that's basically untouched. So I don't have to flatten this side. All I'm really doing is just shining it up. And if I start out with 150 grit on this nice hard steel blade, shines up pretty easy. And right there I could stop. I'm going to take it a little bit further down because it's still got some mill marks on there. And any mill mark that extends out past the edge is a divot in the blade, so it's not going to cut as smoothly. Now, how important is it to have a perfect chip coming off a plane when you're using a rebate plane? I imagine I can get an argument on anybody on that. But to me, a perfect chip is a thing all of its own. What it means is the blade is cutting well. It cuts easily, cuts freely through the wood. The chip is coming off in a nice smooth manner. You're not doing that fits and starts problem when you're trying to plane across a piece of wood where the plane bucks and jumps in your hand and you end up with all kinds of gouges and divots in the surface. Okay, I'm back a good 1/16 of an inch. Considering how often I use a rabbet plane, I can stop right here. I'm going to take it a little bit further because the next guy might want to have it just a little bit further. And while I'm doing the coarse grits, that happens pretty quickly. go. We're back a good 1/8 of an inch. I think that's far enough. No point thinning the blade out any further than that. It doesn't improve the cut that much. So there's really nothing to be gained. I'm just going to establish the angle. And for that, I'm going to come on over here on the 100 and make sure I'm out far enough to hit the angle that I want to get. Okay, I'm all the way across now. I'm going to flip my sandpaper around so I get to wear out the other end a little bit. I have my angle established. I'm not all the way across. See how close to square I am. It takes a little bit more off of this edge. Now in this case, the jig has got an effect on things, but I'm more doing the work by applying pressure in the area that I want to take off. I'm actually biasing towards this side of the blade by just putting my finger pressure on the left-hand side of the jig. There, I'm at 90 degrees. Now, how important is that? That's just a thing for me. That's my own vanity saying I want to do it right. As long as the blade is straight, you have 4 or 5 degrees of angle that you can fiddle with on this plane. So when you're setting the blade in there, you can tweak it so that it's running 90 degrees to this surface, because that's the thing you're trying to do. You want to have this blade run 90 degrees to this surface. When you look at the blade, it sets against this edge, but it also has a whole lot of area to move around in there. So you can square that thing up even though it's way the heck out. And as you can see on this plane, I'm touching right here on the very tip. This is at an angle, so I'm only pinching with just the front edge of the clamp. I push it down here and lock it in place so it doesn't shift back here. I use the leverage of this screw and clamp it down on that front edge. So I just got a contact point there and there. The rest of it, it's sitting against this bottom plate, but there's a big gap in there. That spot right there, the blade never really touches. It only hits here and right up there at the very top. Now, since I'm establishing an angle, I started with 100 grit and I'm moving over to the 150. Then I'll go to the water stones and I'll be good. I want to take off as much material that I don't need as quickly as possible. And that's why you have variations in grit. You want to have the coarse grit to start the job of taking off the material, and then the finer grits take off the scratches from the coarse grit. Craftsman made by Sargent. Now this plane will probably work with that 150 grit sanded down blade. I'm going to take it up with water stones just because I have them and I can. But that's a pretty good edge right there. You notice I didn't take it all the way back? This is the part that does the work. This just goes along to support that front edge. If it's got a little bit of a extra radius right there, doesn't mean anything to it. It's not going to hit on the wood. It's not going to cause a problem with binding or knock the blade out of alignment. Why take off steel that you don't need to? All you're doing is shortening the life of something for no apparent reason other than you didn't pay attention.
Right now I'm going to set up and get ready to paint the body of the plane. I still got to do the mineral spirits and wipe it down and get it taped off and do all that stuff. So that'll be the next video. And then after that, I'll sharpen the blade.
If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.